As you know, we're just at the start of a California governor's race where it seems not a lot of the candidates are really lighting the world on fire, at least zooming way out to the front of the pack. And, you know, in a normal year, you'd expect that by now you'd have one or two of the Democratic candidates really gaining steam. And, you know, based on this current field, it seems, well, maybe if you get to 12%, you have a real shot at being the governor of California. And it kind of begs the question, well, why are some of these candidates who in a normal year you would think would be pretty popular, well, I don't know, we haven't tested it, but maybe root canals would poll more popular than some of them. And as we get closer, right, to the filing deadline, are any of these big candidates going to be dropping out? And do we see any of the candidates with a big potential to grow? And now it's, what, about 4 months, a little less than 4 months between now and the primary. And if we're to believe the polls, and there's a lot of debate on this, and we see there's even an organized campaign on this issue, if we think of politics like an episode of The West Wing, could there be that small possibility that 2 Republicans would make the top 2 in June? Now, of course, if we're preparing to elect a new governor, well, then we're also getting ready to bid farewell to the Newsom administration, whether we like it or not, as he might say. And, you know, if he hangs out a little more in California in the next coming months instead of selling books or traveling to New Hampshire, what are his priorities for the last year of the governorship? There's a lot of time to do a lot of things before the next governor takes office in January. And what can a governor really get done in his final year? And then as we look a little more larger nationally, you know, how should we assess Gavin Newsom's legacy as governor? Well, to do all that, I'm not asking you to work after that. I've got some of the best reporters and opinion writers in the state who are going to come share their thoughts and their reporting and maybe give us some good gossip and some inside scoop. And I'm so pleased today to have with us as one of our panelists, my longtime friend, from when we'd sit in the hallways outside the governor's office when you had Blackberries, typing away at everything they'd say. You would always sit as the press staff or the reporters, we'd always sit in front of the governor's office doorway. And they have a giant, at the time, they had a giant, Governor Schwarzenegger ride on this giant bear. And you would just hang out there for hours on end, especially on budget nights, and way too many hours. So thrilled to have Marisa Lagos from KQED Radio, who's one of the state's top political reporters, and she also hosts a terrific show and podcast called Political Breakdown that I highly recommend to you. She's previously written for the San Francisco Chronicle and the Examiner and the Los Angeles Times. We also have Lindsey Holden, who's a politics reporter for Politico, based here in Sacramento, and she writes the must-read political newsletter every afternoon, California Playbook, PM. You can almost set your clock by it being in your inbox by 4 o'clock every day. And you really learn everything you need to know about what happened in politics that day by reading Playbook PM. I highly recommend you read it every day. Lindsey's also written for the Sacramento Bee and for the San Luis Obispo Tribune. And finally, we have our friend Sal Rodriguez, who's the opinion editor for the Southern California News Group. He's also a PRI senior fellow, and you can read his work on the West Coast urban problems over at our Free Cities Center. Sal's also on the board of Young Voices, and he's written for, in the past, Solitary Watch, and the Reason Foundation. And to moderate the panel, we have one of my favorite people, Marisa, who I've had the pleasure to be on many political panels at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco with her breaking down all the political goings-on across the state. Melissa's an attorney and a writer, and she started as a political journalist and an analyst with a column in the San Francisco Examiner that ran from 2008 to 2013. And from 2016 to 2019, she was a politics reporter for CBS Bay Area. And now this season, in candidate season, you'll see her regularly at the Commonwealth Club interviewing gubernatorial candidates as part of the club's Race for the Governor series. So please welcome up to the panel Marisa, Caen, our moderator, and all of our great panelists.
You don't care where we sit, right?
What's that?
You don't care where we sit?
Nope, sit
okay.
where you like.
Green leaves, right?
I love this podium. I feel like a game show host. Contestant one. Alrighty. So we know each other either informally or formally, and so this should be more of a conversation and less of a sort of strict panel. I've encouraged everyone here to interrupt each other, to ask questions, and generally keep it pretty informal. So hopefully this will be a fun experience for everyone. And I want to start by reading a statement, and then I'm going to ask y'all to weigh in on whether you think it's true or false, or whether it should be edited somehow. So the statement is this: the office of the California governor is second only in importance to the President of the United States. Aside from the presidency, the California governorship is the most important office a person can hold in the United States. Okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Marisa, contestant number 3.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me on this one, or I need this too? Okay, sorry. That was just I swear I'm an audio person. Sure, let's say that. I mean, I think it depends on the moment we're in. I think maybe this time that might be true. I think if Kamala Harris had won, it might be really different. But I think given the sort of posturing of the state right now, the way, regardless of your feelings about the president, that so much of the way the state operates is sort of being threatened by this administration and challenged both from a fiscal and policy standpoint, that at least the next governor has the opportunity to be the second most important office. And I will say elected office, because I think, there's a lot of people in the Trump administration, any administration, who are also incredibly powerful and important.
Yeah, there may be some military folks who would disagree with that. So yeah, agree.
Yeah, no, I think you can make a strong case. I mean, biggest state, 4th largest economy. I mean, a lot of things start here that trickle down to the rest of the country. And I mean, right now, it depends on the person in office, I would think. I mean, he wields a lot of power in the state over his party, over lawmakers. Yeah, I think you could make a strong case. So yeah.
Sal, do you want to weigh in on this, or you pass?
Hold on, does this work? This does work. So that's what Gavin Newsom tells himself every day when he wakes up. I'm the second most important, but I should be the first. But no, I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Where did that come from? Newsom's press office? What are you doing?
No. In light of the fact that it is at least debatable, or at least is possible, that it is the second most important
Speaker of the House
office.
has more influence
Okay.
over the fate of the country.
The question then is, why is it such a mess right now in terms of the election of this very important, maybe not the most important, maybe not the second or third most important, but pretty high up there office? We end up with a situation where we have so many candidates continuing to poll poorly and that appear to have no chance. And the sort of top 2 primary or the runoff primary that makes betting markets go wild. Any thoughts on sort of how we ended up here? It seems like, at least since Jerry Brown, there's been a sort of ordained order to things.
Yeah.
Lindsey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough job. I think, and especially, you may characterize the current situation however you want, but I mean, we have a budget deficit, a hostile administration. There's just a lot of things you have to deal with as governor, and it's a tough, substantial job, and I can see why a lot of people wouldn't want it. And then
Everybody wants it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm thinking about Alex Padilla, Kamala Harris. There were some contenders you thought would see this as an attractive position who are like, no, I don't think so. Yeah. And I guess you are, to some extent, giving up on your ambitions for 4 years or so to stay in the job. So that may be part of it as well. But I mean, yeah, there are an insane amount of people. They're just very, as Joe Garofoli put it, mid in his column. I thought that was very funny. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why you think there's so many kind of like.
Well, I just want to reframe this and say, I think it's really exciting that we have an open governor's race. Like, even if you're not excited about these candidates, I've been working in political reporting since the recall of Gray Davis, and this kind of feels like the first non-coronation we've had in my entire life. So like, you know, they may be mid, but there are mid candidates. And I do think we're gonna see some consolidation. Look, for a lot of us in this room, we follow this stuff so closely, but if you were to walk to any, you know, out in front of, really in any city in the state and ask most people like who's running for governor, I would bet like 8 out of 10 maybe could name 1 or 2 people. Like the public has not engaged in this yet. And part of that is because it is such a big field, but also because like the candidates haven't really gone full throttle yet. Like we're not seeing a ton of advertising. I think in the sort of mainstream areas, we haven't had, you know, any consolidation to the point where you really have, I mean, if you've watched any of the debates or forums, there's like so many people right now, it just feels like you're kind of going down the line. So I think there's gonna be some movement. I think this is at this point probably a race between 4 to 6 people. And, you know, not that it's my job, but it might be better for a lot of us if some of them were to hang up their hats.
I've characterized this as if you've ever watched Dancing with the Stars, like the very first like episode of Dancing with the Stars, where there's like a bunch of people.
Like some of them can't even dance.
They're barely making it out there, and they need to leave so it can be more interesting. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and it's like we all got spoiled from a narrative perspective. Like we had the Terminator as governor, and then we had Moonbeam. And then Gavin Newsom was like primed to be future governor for a long time, and then he was, and made it all very easy. And Jerry Brown, to his credit, well, and he had to because budget problems. He helped clean up the state's finances, set up things very beautifully for Gavin to come in. He had pension reform. He cleared the wall of debt. Things were set up nice and tidy for Newsom to come in. Newsom is leaving a mess. He's despite having now record levels of revenues in the state budget, the state is spending more and more at a rate that is way faster than the amount it takes in, has projected structural budget deficits for the next several years of like $30 billion a year. That's hard. That's a hard thing to clear, especially if you're trying to run a progressive campaign where you want to do more than just clean up the mess of your predecessor. So like who could blame Kamala Harris for going, nah, I'm not doing that. I was vice president, could have been president. Nah, I'm not gonna have to go back to work now. Or like Alex Padilla, like he has the sickest job. He doesn't have to do anything, and he's gonna be elected for all time. Like it's so like why would you come and have to work now? He's worked too hard through his life to have to actually work now. And then who else was there? And then it's like what, a Rick Caruso, like he was thinking like maybe I should jump in, maybe I should save LA, maybe I should save California, probably ran the numbers and saw, oh yeah, no actually, I'm not gonna be able to, I'll be like a 5%er. So it's like, so that's why now comparatively the field looks so terrible. And it also, the other reason that the field looks so bad and so weak is because it is. It's like, we have, Eric Swalwell, does anyone know what he believes? Like, does anyone have any idea what he thinks about anything, about housing policy, about state budget, about water policy? Does anyone know anything other than that he, wrote erotica in college and was really mad at Trump? Like, I mean, and then
I was not aware
like,
of the erotica.
Yeah, what is this?
Oh, you have not
now who's mid, right?
You're lucky you have not been privy to that.
That's for you read that on your own time.
Well,
I'll be billing for those hours.
Yeah, I read that and was like, why did I read that? It's a great point. Rick Caruso recently endorsed Matt Mahan, who was, I think, supposed to be here today, but everyone's now in San Francisco at the Democratic Convention trying to keep each other from getting 60% of the vote to prevent any official party endorsement. So I assume that that's where he is. But a recent Emerson poll shows he's only getting 3 to 4% support. What has his entry to the race done, and what do you think needs to be done for him? He's got some good endorsements. He's got some good folks behind him. But what does that mean for the race? Still open, by the way, Andrew. if you're listening. March 8th. So it's still a little open, but weigh in, Sal, if you want to give us a start on Matt and his impact on the race.
I mean, yeah, so he came in as that 5%er that Caruso probably would have entered in as. He better hope that Antonio Villaraigosa drops out or something and backs him, because that's presumably the moderate lane there. Although then that's only like 10% of the electorate, which is horrifying. And so, I mean, he's got to hope that some people drop out. He's got to hope that Katie Porter blows up again. He's got to hope that Eric Swalwell has like worse poetry in his history. No, I think he's doomed. I think he's a nice man. But he's a Bay Area Democrat who Bay Area Democrats don't like, because he's like vaguely moderate, because he occasionally says, I think we should arrest some criminals for crimes. And that makes him unacceptable, like in the Democratic Party. So, I don't know. I think he's doomed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he has much of a chance, but I mean, I think this is a profile raising opportunity for him. He has a lot of tech money. He is more in the moderate lane than a lot of the other candidates in terms of.
Matt Mahan.
Yeah, San Jose mayor who jumped into the governor's race, yeah. But yeah, I think for a lot of these candidates, it's not just about winning, it's about, getting some attention, raising your profile, maybe taking a stab at something else down the road. And this is a good opportunity for that.
Yeah, I mean, for him, it's a free run, right? Like, more people already have said his name in the past few weeks than ever before. He doesn't have to give up the mayorship. I mean, I do think the tech money that's backing him could have an impact, right? Like, look at the US Senate race between Porter and Adam Schiff. Crypto came in and dumped a lot of money and helped move that field, and I think they didn't even really care. Like, they were literally just doing that to like show that they could in that case. And so I think when you look at the sort of AI boom and the amount of money that is floating around, like, there is some, ability, if not to like put Mahan in a winning spot, to tear down some of his opponents. And I think you've seen like some of those dynamics play out with someone like Tom Steyer really going after him and kind of ignoring Swalwell and Porter, who are both polling in most polls better than any of them. Steyer, like, don't count out just because of the money. I think you have to, he is relevant, if nothing else, because he's spending so much money and he has been able to raise his name ID. And so, I think that leaves, obviously, we haven't even talked about Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco. We're seeing some sort of like inter-party violence over there as they kind of, go after each other. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. I think Hilton has ended up occupying a more sort of establishment place in like the current Republican Party than I expected someone like him to. Like, he's a British dude who I think maybe used to be a liberal. Like, I don't know. I mean, he's Steve. But like, he has really locked up a lot of connections and support from people that are in like more the Trump sort of world in California. And so I think that is, he is a strong candidate, and I think we're seeing a really interesting dynamic there where, like, you would think he would want to be in this runoff with Bianco, but there seems to be, some move to kind of try to pull him down as well.
It seems like, the Hilton campaign views this not as necessarily a R on R, but believes that that's possible in a way that maybe we haven't seen in a long time, if ever before, but also not probable, that somebody in the Democratic Party will break through. So he needs to make sure he's the one Republican. But interestingly, so Hilton, in the last debate, the Fox 2 debate, Hilton went after Mahan. Also, now we see Tom Steyer going after Mahan. Too. So even though he's still polling really low, people are really aiming at him, I think maybe trying to get that independent vote. But what we're not seeing necessarily, to Sal's point, is candidates distancing themselves from the governor. Democrats distancing themselves from the governor. Talk about what you'd like to see, maybe what you're seeing from the candidates, but how difficult it can be to be a Democrat following a Democrat into office and in trying to distinguish yourself from this field of folks.
Yeah. Lindsey?
Marisa?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Go first.
Yeah, no, I think it is interesting. I mean, and, I think it's tough because, Newsom, I mean, they might agree with some of Newsom's policies. Maybe some of them are unpopular. Maybe they're kind of still figuring out what they are. Newsom probably isn't going to endorse before they figure out who's going to be the nominee before the primary. But yeah, I think it is tough. Obviously, you're going to be judged by your own party, and I think it's definitely more of a challenge because, I mean, the other side, they can just tear down, Newsom, and you kind of have to stay in the same lane to some degree.
Yeah, I think this has been really fascinating to watch. We're getting all the candidates in on our podcast, and in there and other forums that I've moderated, you do have this sort of duality among the Democrats where they're like, I'm going to make this state better. It's not great. Okay, what would you do different? Well, it's fine, but it's not great. It's very, and I think you see this across the board, and it's one of the most frustrating things in an election about being a political reporter is just the platitudes, I'm going to cut costs, and it's well, how? What? Where? And none of them, Democrat, Republican, Independent, want to answer that. So yeah, I think that there is a really tricky line here. I think given, Newsom's sort of national popularity with the Democratic Party in this exact moment, which could shift very quickly, there is a bit of a tightrope you see these Democrats walking. And then just in general, I think, when you have a state budget as large as this one, when you have a government as big as this one, it's pretty easy to kind of talk up here and not get into those specifics, which has sort of made it a little easier for these candidates to kind of, do both, speak out of both sides of their mouths when it comes to the current administration.
Yeah, and I think it is easier for someone like Mahan, who he's
Well,
already
he's already burned that bridge.
Yeah, he's been taking on Newsom for a long time and disagreeing with him on Prop 36, on homelessness, on a bunch of different things. So yeah.
Yeah, but the biggest problem. So besides Mahan backing Prop 36, which was passed overwhelmingly in the state. If you're going to try to get down to bare bones, especially fiscal matters or government reform matters, that means you have to buck the unions. And if you're a Democrat trying to break through, do you really want to anger one of the key constituencies and funders and power players? That's why Villaraigosa has never been able to break through. He crossed them when he was mayor of LA because he thought, I don't know, I think kids should have a good education. And if charter schools can do that, great. And then he's been written out of the Democratic Party ever since. And so that's, and are we going to suddenly have Tony Thurman truth teller? What are we doing? What are we expecting from the candidates? Katie Porter could, she's the ultimate outsider. She should be, and when I say outsider, she popped onto the scene in Orange County. She became a congressperson, raised a lot of money, and then blew up, and everyone knows her as the loud, angry lady who didn't accomplish anything in the House besides raising a lot of money, and then lost in Senate. She might as well be telling the truth now. But whenever, there was one time where she said, I don't know about this bullet train thing. I think that's a lot of money that we're spending, and I don't know if it's fair to Californians that we spend all this money on a project that might not come online. And then a week later, she went to go get a union endorsement. She was like, I love the bullet train. There's so many jobs. This would be crazy to turn this down. So it's and that's she probably got a call. She probably got a how dare you? Think about all the jobs. Think about you're going to lose all the unions in the Central Valley. So how do you break through when you're not going to when the apparatus in the Democratic Party is built around special interest groups with a lot of money and power that are also behind a lot of the problems that plague state government? Are you really going to push back against that? Probably not. You're just going to be like an Eric Swalwell and just hope that those impeachment hearings that people vaguely remember you from carry you through.
Well, typically, and you guys are a free market loving organization, typically there's a bit of capitalism in politics in that you can run out of money, right? And that's kind of what drives people out, even people with big egos and well-paid consultants with PowerPoints showing there's a path. Typically the money dries up and that's how you get out. We have a situation where we have Tom Steyer, who is just sort of impervious to those kind of sort of market forces, but also we've got a lot of other money. It's not just union money and support. There's all kinds of, tech money. People can stay in this race longer, it seems, than a normal congressional race or a sort of lower level race. What does that do to, how does that impact the candidates? How does that impact sort of your reporting on the race and your hopes for how things are going to play out when it's possible that several candidates will have, just resources to take them all the way through? Marisa?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because even some of the candidates that we might consider long shot right here, like, raised millions of dollars in the last filing. So it's not, I mean, there's a couple that are really, really trailing. I won't name names, but you can probably guess who they are, or you maybe not because you don't know who they are. But yeah, I think that like, it does speak to the sort of unsettledness of this moment. I think, Steyer getting in really did shuffle the deck in that way. Like we said, Mahan is definitely benefiting from a lot of his Silicon Valley ties. But I do think, yeah, in the coming weeks, I mean, you mentioned Marth H. I think keep an eye on the field in the next couple of weeks, especially coming out of this Democratic convention. Like, do we see pressure building behind the scenes for some of these folks to drop out, perhaps? And then, yeah, how does that kind of consolidate? I think a lot of people have just decided to like bet on their horse until now, but I think that time will probably come to an end.
Yeah, and I think the labor point is interesting because I think that is part of the reason why there's still so many people, like some of the biggest, most powerful unions haven't endorsed anyone. There's no one playing traffic cop, so to speak. There's not like
it was also why there was all that pressure for Kamala Harris or Alex Padilla to get in because they would have had a candidate and then they wouldn't have had to have these sort of intra-party fights.
Exactly. And then I think there's some like signaling a little bit, like Adam Schiff recently endorsed Eric Swalwell, kind of being like, okay guys, let's like, maybe the rest of you should like think about it. But yeah, I think, and as time comes toward the primary, people start having to spend their money. So like Steyer has spent money already, but like Villaraigosa is up on TV now. So as people spend, they might get to a point where they run out of money.
All right, well, that brings us to the current administration. Now that we're talking about how do they distance themselves, how do they make it all the way through, a recent Emerson poll just came out showing Gavin Newsom has now a 45% disapproval rate. That is up, so disapproval is up, just so we're clear. Back in December, and that includes 20% of Democrats, right? This is not just the usual suspects who are gonna not like him no matter what. 20% of Democrats polled said that they disapprove, and that is up from 13% of Democrats just 2 months ago. So even though there's a margin of error of 3 points, there's statistically a significant drop in approval for Gavin Newsom among Democrats and independents, importantly, who disapproved of him by 47% in December, and now 53% of independents disapprove. Again, not 80, but still, again, not just your usual sort of people who never liked him to begin with. There seems like, and Sal, as you pointed out, he's leaving some mess, and he's not as popular at home, maybe as he is in other places. So why aren't more people willing to break with him on things that are even maybe unrelated to the unions? Things like, should you send mean tweets, or how do you spend your time? How do you, are you present, and how do you, deal with, sort of rolling out a budget and other things?
I mean, I'd love for them to go do that, but as I said, I think 45% is a lot, and Gavin Newsom's very popular whenever he's campaigning against Trump. That's when he saw that prior surge during the Prop 50 campaign that helped revitalize his approval numbers, and now it's gone. Now he's back to just being himself, and everyone's like, oh yeah, he's running for president, I guess. Oh yeah, and the state is really expensive, and we have a lot of homeless people, and our urban areas are like decaying. Oh yeah, I guess that's his legacy. But as I said, I think what is Eric Swalwell going to do? Say like, Gavin Newsom stinks. I'm going to come in. I'm going to cut the budget. We're gonna not raise taxes. We're gonna end the bullet train. We're going to build prisons. We're going to stop closing prisons and build more. What is he going to do? It's just going to upset Democrats.
Well, does this create a lane for somebody like Steve Hilton or Sheriff Bianco?
No. No.
The
It's like,
disapproval of Newsom?
no. I've heard that every election cycle from Republicans and Republican consultants. I remember when like Brian Dolly's people were like insistent, like, oh yeah, $8 gas, COVID lockdowns, people are mad. He's totally going to be governor. And I said no. And then they got mad. And I was like, well, too bad. He wasn't going to win. I mean, you go back to 2014, basic California political history, statewide races. California, the Democrats are going to win 60-40. That's what's going to happen. Prop 50 passed what, almost 2/3, and then a year later, Steve Hilton's suddenly going to pop up, and be like, oh yeah, I got it, and I have an English accent, and I'm not related to Paris, and he's going to win. No, it's not going to happen. It would be fun.
The accent goes a long way, I'm just saying. Lindsey.
No, I mean, yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. I mean, when you think about, we're talking about Newsom legacy. I mean, some of the stuff that you mentioned, the high-speed rail, that was not something he started. He has defended it and perpetuated it, but it wasn't his baby. The gas tax rate, raising the gas tax was a Jerry Brown thing. Again, he hasn't changed it, but so some of that, he has kept it going. But I mean, I don't know, he has a complicated legacy. I think COVID is certainly part of that in terms of programs he started before COVID around homelessness, and then COVID kind of changed them, tanked them. All of the French Laundry, the recall. I mean, he's had like very complex legacy, and I think some of the programs he started, the budget has made them untenable to some degree. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think there are probably Democrats who don't disagree with the platform that he's kept going, but I mean, I think it's hard with the budget realities and everything. And so, I mean, it's kind of a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to what I think Sal pointed out, which is like it's hard to make the sort of argument as a Democrat that you're going to be like fiscally responsible, but also not hurt all the constituencies that are bringing you to the party. You also have to like step back and look at the national politics right now and how polarized we are. And I think how little of an appetite Democrats have to attack their own in this moment, right? And so even if there are a lot of people who maybe don't love Newsom, maybe less so on a policy level on the left, but more on like a personality level, if he is sort of the president's biggest foil, there's not a lot of political incentive to go out and trash him. And I think like, again, if there was, Matt Mahan would probably be polling better,
And it's like one of the problems of California being a one-party state is that one-party states tend to like breed like a political mediocrity. Like we have like no one is like. When does anyone ever push back against Newsom from within his own party? The Democrats have remarkable party discipline. Like, if there's a terrible bill, the Democrats who disagree with the bill, they just don't vote. They abstain on something. The most that'll happen is like maybe like what Jasmeet Bains will be like, will issue some statement like, I humbly disagree with the great governor, and then that's it. And then that's the entire pushback. Like there's never really there's no like someone in San Bernardino or something like pushing back and fighting back. And they're like, you know what, this intrudes on my Democratic constituents. No, it never happens. And it's been a decade of that, of party discipline and no one really pushing back within the party.
Does that hurt him in a presidential race, not having to really deal with opposition?
Yeah, he's a Bay Area Democrat from California. I don't think that's popular in Pennsylvania or Ohio or anywhere else outside of like Oregon.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting because I think when a lot of California Democrats on like the more liberal end of the spectrum look at him, they think he's pretty moderate as a Democrat actually, and I think he gets tagged with the liberal tag because he's from California, and I think when you look at him, he's a little more down the middle than you might think, and he has been trying to get a little bit to the right with some of his like podcast guests, with some of the stances he's taken. I think that he's maybe a little more midline than people might think nationally.
Yeah, I'll just say ahead of his final budget State of the State bonanza in January, I called around to just like different constituencies. So I talked to the Chamber of Commerce, I talked to folks in education policy and healthcare policy, and it was like really interesting because within each of their areas, and take this all with a grain of salt because the dude does have one more year and they're all trying not to piss him off that much, but I also think that like a lot of the things that he would point to as successes are, they seem minor if you're not a parent who suddenly has TK, But if you're saving $3,000 a month for your 4-year-old, that probably feels really good regardless of whether you like Gavin Newsom. If you didn't qualify for Medi-Cal before and suddenly like your whole family can get on Medi-Cal, that helps. So I do think that there are areas like, you know, this is a giant state with a lot of complicated issues every single day. But it was fascinating to me, and like, yeah, talking to Jennifer at Cal Chamber, you know, they've been very happy with him holding the line on taxes. They got PAGA reform. Second time you'll hear that today, and hopefully the last. But you know, like, it wasn't, I thought I would hear more sort of harsh criticisms from both wings, and I didn't, and I thought that was really interesting, and I think it does speak in part to like, also just like, he is a lightning rod because like, look at the dude. Like I mean, he has always had, I think, an affect, a personality that really inspires a lot of strong feelings.
Well, if you want to hear somebody criticize the state of the state address, Sal here wrote a column, and I love
this. This was before the speech, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the speech itself.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. I remember because it's I love this title. Gavin Newsom's final state of the state is an unbelievable fairy tale. So that was the headline. So Sal, do you want to weigh in on sort of what are some of the biggest issues that you're seeing in the current administration that probably won't get fixed since he's campaigning for the final year? And what are these candidates walking into?
Well, yeah. So like I said, they're walking into a structural budget deficit. They're walking into the worst performing K-12 education system in the country, which has just gotten worse despite all the money they've spent. Gavin's also, he's handing off his successor the reparations office. So it's like, here you go, here's a political headache for you. What else is he? I mean, he's got the bullet train. He's got the eternal problem of homelessness. You know, all of his housing reforms, they all have asterisks next to them, so you can't really get any regulatory reprieve unless you deal with the unions and you meet this and that requirement and this and that mandate, which means you don't actually get any regulatory reprieve, so you have a worsening housing crisis. Let's see, what else? You have billionaires and business owners leaving the states, which is kind of a problem. You kind of need them to make money, so you have, as a government, so that you can be the parasite that takes that money and go waste it. And so that's what he's leaving behind. And I will say, just as an aside, on the last round of questions, I mean, Newsom's a moderate in the sense that like Khrushchev was a moderate compared to Stalin. Like, I guess he's a moderate. Like, I mean, Newsom's idea of being a moderate is saying like, yeah, I mean, I think girls should play against girls. And like, that's it. Like, that was his moderate streak. That was his grand moderate stand. And then like in the weeks later, just like completely getting rid of all that goodwill. But like, I want more trans kids. It's like, okay, just relax, Gavin. This is why you're not gonna be president.
Well, one of the things that he did accomplish, if you can call it an accomplishment, however you think about it, is to pass Prop 50, right? So we've got the new congressional redistricting. Before we go, I want to make sure we touch on this. What races are y'all watching? Is it going to be as successful as I think that they thought? They were going to pick up 5 seats. And is
where will Kevin Kiley run, you guys? No, seriously. I don't need another Twitter explainer from Kevin. I just want to know which district he's picking.
He's so dramatic. He's veiling it so dramatically.
Yeah.
He's really building the tension.
What races are you watching, and what do you think is going to happen with the? Is it going to result in 5 additional seats? Do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one interesting one is down south, Daryl Issa's district. You have Campanajjar, who's run a couple times against Marnie Van. What's her last name? Wilbert. Thank you. I used to be from SoCal. It seems like she might actually get the Democratic nomination this weekend, potentially. That would be fascinating.
I mean, it can't be a Mark Campanajjar. That dude's he's like 30 and he's a perennial candidate already.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I personally think it's not going to change the math, but the Ken Calvert Young Kim race is going to be really fascinating to watch in Orange County, kind of. I guess Inland Empire, Palm Desert, because you have 2 Republicans sort of from different, generations, but not all that different. So like, how do they try to sort of define themselves and each other? Do we see, attacks on one another? I think like our friend Joe Garofoli at the Chronicle just went on the road with Jared Huffman, who was like up in the north part of that district trying to make friends with people, which was like kind of hilarious because like that's a very safe Democratic district now. So like, I'm sure his soon-to-be new constituents appreciated him coming to town, but it's not like he doesn't have to be doing that. And then I think some of these races around here are going to be kind of the more interesting ones to watch. I don't know, Lindsey, you're probably following that.
No, I was going to say, I think in Sacramento we have Doris Matsui is getting challenged by Mai Vang, a more progressive city council member. She hasn't had like the serious of a challenger in a while, and it's kind of part of this like wave of younger people coming and challenging people who've been
Wait,
around.
on that generational thing, has anyone else seen the John Garamendi billboard I saw today?
Yeah.
It's so savage. It just has a picture of him and it says happy 81st birthday.
Oh.
And then it says serving in Congress for 52 years. That's it. No, nothing else. Just gonna leave that there.
No, wow.
That's so passive aggressive.
It's wild.
As a
I was like,
Southerner,
what?
I approve.
I would say the purple race I'm watching is in Central Valley, David Valadao. There's Randy Villegas and Jasmeet Bains. Jasmeet Bains is more moderate. Randy Villegas is the Bernie endorsed, more progressive candidate. So they're going to duke it out for the endorsement this weekend. And obviously Valadao, it was already really competitive. Prop 50 made his district more competitive for Democrats.
It's like Lucy with the football, though. I mean, if I take one more trip there to do a story about how Democrats might win this time, we'll see though. I
There's
mean,
no Rudy Salas this time.
There is no
so
Rudy Salas,
You never know. But so I'm kind of interested in that one.
Yeah, and like, so it was already mentioned, like, so like the young Ken Calvert race, that's going to be interesting because that's one seat that Republicans should be able to hold on to. It's going to be, whoever wins between the two of them is going to be the next congressman for that district. Young Kim has tried to present herself as like a moderate over the years, and she's really emphasized her work on bills with Democrats and her very high bipartisan bill record. And ever since the redrawing, she's now trying to like reinvent herself as MAGA, and it comes across very strange. So I don't know if that'll work. And Ken Calvert's been around forever, and he has a lot of money, so he should be able to power through. And he lives in the district, and he's represented a lot of the 40th congressional district already. Other than that, it's like the most remarkable thing is how Prop 50 turned a lot of once sort of interesting races into nothings. Like Derek Tran barely beat Michelle Steele, and the Republicans have come up with no one. They've come up with no one. It's going to come down to which horrible council member from Westminster is going to be the one to make it against him. Is it going to be the one who's like in a diversion program after like pleading guilty to attempted bribery, or is it going to be like the other guy who's like her enemy on the city council? So that's going to be compelling.
Hey, don't we believe in rehabilitation? Okay.
Sure. Maybe like after she finishes her.
Yeah,
her
maybe
term.
after the diversion's over.
And then it's like the northern LA County district that Steve Knight represented, and then it was Christy Smith, and then she had the thruple, and then it was Mike Garcia, and now it's George Whitesides, and he's just going to be there forever now. I think they have like some Santa Clarita councilman who's running against him, who's
what
like
about the Kylie and Vera seats up in Sacramento?
I'm a Southern California guy. I know nothing
We
about
don't know
Northern
yet. We don't
Yeah,
know
we
which
don't know who's-
district he's running in. He could, yeah.
Kyle, so Bara's moving over, right? I think that's what we'll be watching to see if Kylie decides to enter that race. But yeah, right. I mean, it seems like so far that district and then where Pan is running are more like Democrats are sort of the ones fighting it out ahead of the primary.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, you ready?
So yeah, it's going to be a good night for the Democrats. Sorry.
I know it pains you to say, well, we do have to wrap it up, but before we go, I do have one thing that I promised Steve Malvezzo that I would pass along to you, which is this. Stop quoting Consumer Watchdog. That organization has no members and is a scam. Okay. And on that note, thank you all for staying. Thank you to Sal and Lindsey and Marisa